Hey friends, you're listening to Nostalgia Nation, the audio edition. I'm John Toma, also known as that 80s dude, and in this episode we're exploring the lost art of VHS spine labels. And believe me, if you've ever squinted at a handwritten title in fading marker or slapped a neon Be Kind Rewind sticker on a worn-out tape, you already know. Those little rectangles carried a lot more than just a movie title. They were memory tags, analog metadata, and tiny works of homegrown art. Let's rewind. I want you to picture this. It's a late 1980-something Friday night, and you're staring at a bookshelf full of VHS tapes in your living room. Each cassette stands upright like a book, proudly displaying a spine label that you meticulously applied. Those spine label stickers were important markers in their own right. They were really your first attempt at being organized. Now, picture yourself at the video store. For Gen Xers, the sight of a Be Kind Rewind sticker decal or those fuzzy genre stickers take you back instantly, right? In this episode, we'll rewind time to explore the cultural, historical, and aesthetic significance of VHS spine labels and related ephemera. From color-coded genre stickers to quirky rental reminders. It's a personal journey, to be honest. I mean, I vividly remember organizing my own tapes as a teenager. It was a lot of fun. So let's dive into why those spine labels still matter today. In the heyday of home video, VHS spine labels served as a personal library catalog. Once you recorded a TV show or brought home a new movie, the first order of business was often labeling the tape. A typical VHS label displayed the movie title, maybe a date, and any other notes to identify the content. This was all vital. With dozens of tapes on the shelf, you needed to see at a glance whether a cassette was your Star Wars recording or last week's Simpsons episodes or a family video that you needed to make sure you didn't record over by accident. Most blank VHS tapes came with sticker sheets for this purpose. There was the main label, also known as the tape or top label, and then there was one long sticker for the spine. And let's not forget the smaller stickers for tape length, such as T60, T120, or T160, and in case you were recording multiple programs and you wanted to make sure you had enough room on your tape. Now, for a lot of us, especially Gen X, creating those spine labels was more than a task. It was really a ritual. Some of us had systems in place, and I remember digging through sticker books, picking just the right one to slap on the side of a tape so I'd know exactly what was on it. Sometimes I'd use alphabet stickers to mark the order of a series, or even scratch and sniff stickers sometimes, and that made it really aesthetically fun, right? I remember thinking, I'm not sure if you recall the television series, that sci-fi series that was very popular in the early 80s. And, I had several volumes of that because it was kind of a longer series. And, there were all sorts of stickers, basically. I would use letters in order to designate which volume in which order so I can just pick it off the shelf very quickly. And, it was basically you were a part librarian, part archivist, part mixtape DJ. It was totally personal, and I love that. Others, that I knew simply scribbled titles by hand, using a marker or using a pencil just because they wanted to sometimes cross out something and rewrite it on the tape. And if you re-recorded over tape, you wanted to make sure you could, at least if you didn't have another spine label, you could just erase it and apply, that writing on the label. And so the aesthetics varied widely. Now, there were those that used label makers, and that was sort of a specialty, right? You had to have a label maker. and today, I think if I find those, I really have to buy them because I think they look really cool on the VHS tape. Now, organizing tapes by their spines made, movie picking feel like pulling a book from the shelf, for me at least. Now, it's no surprise many of us, feel really nostalgic even for the look of those, those types of spines that had all of that writing on them. And I have many of those on my shelf now. Now, I have a respectable Blu-ray DVD collection, and it's to me, it's really a shame that there was never really a systemized way to produce the exterior that was like a unified exterior to store a DVD, similar to the VHS. Now, today, obviously, there are a few boutique production houses like Shout and Vinegar Syndrome and several other ones that they create these really unique steelbooks and other intricate boxes for the DVDs, but they all have their own systems as well. And if you remember, like VHS tapes, cassette tapes, and vinyl, they're notorious for having that unified sizing, similar to comic books, for example. Now, the other thing too with DVDs is that, the spines are so thin that you can't really customize them, right? It doesn't make any sense to do that. But with VHS, by contrast, you're looking at the thicker spine. So it was kind of a canvas for logos, artwork, and kind of like personal touches. And I miss that, you guys. Okay, let's talk about genre stickers and those colorful design tropes of the VHS cassette. Now, beyond home collections, video stores and tape distributors developed a visual language of their own for VHS packaging. Stroll through any old rental aisle in your memory, and you might recall the color-coded stickers shouting a tape's genre, and this often came in standardized colors for quick recognition, right? So while each store's scheme varied, right, because the layouts were different, these types of coordinated stickers really provided a cool aesthetic on the shelves. Now, these design tropes weren't strict rules, right? But patterns definitely emerged. Horror VHS covers themselves often featured black and red motifs, while family films used brighter, friendlier colors. And stores capitalize on that by adding their own bold spine labels and genre decals to make, reshelving easier and finding those movies for their customers much easier, right? So, like, if you remember, like there was the neon horror sticker, right? And it was practically screaming like, kids, put this back. But if you were a teenager, that screamed to me like it caught my attention and I wanted to see that movie even more. Now, it was very common for mom and pop's video stores to create cataloging systems for their own and place those labels on the spine area or on the slip cover, right, on the spine in order to locate a title. And that's why today you'll find films like on eBay, for example, when you try to buy VHS tapes, there are some VHS covers where you look at the spine and it's got all these weird stickers on them that have categories or numbers in order to help the mom and pop shop find those VHS tapes. And back in the day when I purchased VHS tapes, I used to hate those labels because I thought, wow, way to destroy beautiful box art, right? But today, I tend to look for those when I'm shopping around for a new VHS tape to add to my collection. Do you guys do the same thing? I'm curious. So, the other thing that comes to mind is that major studios had these signature spine designs that became really familiar to us, right? So if you think back, you remember those Disney, for instance, they famously packaged their cassettes in those white plastic clamshells with the art. Actually, you can slip it right into the case itself, right? And they had that standardized size. So it wasn't just a quirk. It was for those movies to stand out on a shelf. And then early VHS tapes were expensive. Remember that? So they were priced. I have a Top Gun. I have an Iron Eagle VHS tape that still has the original sticker on it. It was $99.75. And in the late 70s and 80s, that was very common. And by the time sell-through prices dropped in the 90s, most studios switched to slimmer cardboard slipcovers. And on top of that, they didn't even include spine covers or even tape labels anymore. They just printed everything on them, which I absolutely hate. I'm disgusted by those VHS tapes. And I love tapes that actually have the labels on them. And but going back to Disney real quick, they stuck to the clamshell for decades, right? So as a result, the spines of Disney VHS tapes became very much outliers, right? They were taller, fatter. They had bubbly font and that castle logo at the top, if you remember that. So you either had to give them their own row or let them awkwardly dominate the space because, they were thicker than everything else. And today, if I look at my shelf, those Disney clamshells definitely take up far more space, and the ones from Nickelodeon as well, like the Rugrats with that bright orange. They take up quite a bit of space. Meanwhile, other studios had their own trademarks, right? I mean, one of my favorites were the MGM United Artists, if you remember those. Those sleeves are great. These things were really cool because they were like opening a book cover. The VHS tape was nestled inside, and it was just a great experience to open them. Now, the only downside to those is that they definitely took up more space, just like those Disney clamshells. And I'm curious, I've got this question for you. Do you remember the consistent placement of logos like CBS, Fox, or Orion Home Video? The RCA Columbia Pictures was a great one because their spines had that distinctive red spine label or rectangle that went around the title. And so these studios would apply these tactics in order to make their VHS tapes or their titles stand out. Think back to the Ghostbusters ones. Those were great because they have that red rectangle all the way around them and they stand out vividly. Collectors today, they can often identify a tape's era or publisher just by that spine layout or the color scheme. And I think that's really interesting because it just goes to show you how powerful design is on anything, right? But especially for those VHS tapes. Do you remember going in and actually like picking out a tape just because of the cover and the awesome artwork or the photography on the cover, but then you go home and you play it and you're like disgusted by the actual movie itself? You're like, this is a terrible movie. But the artwork was something else. And I have films like that on my shelf where I love the box art, but the movie is terrible. And let's not forget that some tapes had colored cassette shells, right? And like E.T., for example, it was green, if you remember that. That was a good way for cassettes to stand out. Okay, so anyone that rented a VHS in the 80s or 90s and even into the 2000s remembers the saying, "Be kind, rewind." Admit it. It is one of the most predominant and nostalgic things from that time that stands out to you as a practice of that time, right? So it's like in that box in your mind. Now, this gentle rhyme, "Be kind, rewind," was printed on countless stickers plastered to rental tapes all over the world. It was even accompanied by a smiley face or bold lettering, and on it, you remember those smiley face stickers? They're very, very well known. Now, the "Be Kind, Rewind" sticker became a universally recognized plea. Why is that? Because many of us forget now that VHS tapes had to be manually rewound, and video stores cared, damn it. An unrewound tape meant the next customer, or the poor clerk, had to spend several extra minutes running it to the beginning. To encourage good behavior, rental shops deployed these stickers everywhere. And some even back them up with fines. You remember that, right? When most of you may know this already if you follow me on Instagram, which if you're not, I highly recommend you do, at that 80s dude, that I worked at Hollywood Video back in the late 90s. And we had about a dozen tape rewinders behind the desk because we never wanted to pass that task to the rental customer. Now, it was store policy that every tape that arrived was rewound by staff if the customer that returned it forgot to rewind it. So yes, failing to rewind could hit you in the wallet depending where you rented from. We never charged you at Hollywood Video, but we definitely gave you some dirty looks. This is where the infamous $2 late fee was born from, right? If you're late with your cassette, you would be hit with that fee. If you didn't rewind, you were hit with a fee, maybe not $2, maybe 50 cents, maybe $1. Now, there are some of you out there right now that remember trying to rent a tape only to be told that you couldn't rent one until the fee was paid. And I just want to say, shame on you. Now, Blockbuster sticker is probably the most notorious of them all because the tape label was cleverly designed to wrap around the front face and to the left side of the videotape. So that on one side showed you like a polite reminder, and on the other side, in bold capital letters, it said "warning," presumably threatening fees or charges if you ignored. But I really want to talk about the arsenal of other ephemera rental stores deployed back in the day, okay? Do you remember the 3-day rental or the new release stickers, denoting how long you could keep a tape? There were all sorts of genre labels to direct you to the right shelf, and often a property sticker with the store's name or an ID number. Many tapes rattled with like little magnetic security strips inside or had a holographic sticker that set off alarms. There were all sorts of things happening, all sorts of shenanigans with VHS tapes, right? And woe to the person who tried to peel it off. And I remember some ex-rental tapes still bear the scar of a label that threatened a hefty charge if it was tampered with. I would rent things sometimes and bring them home and see that thing was peeled off. And I remember one time calling and saying, hey, this thing was peeled off. I didn't do it. And then the store would say, don't worry about it. We get these sometimes. Just when you return it, remind us, and we'll make a note of it. And I remember, even seeing stickers that said something like $99.95 charge for tampering with this label, which was like a not so subtle way to deter theft or home recording, but it still happened. It still happened. Another bit of security theater was the tamper evidence seal on the tape's edge for the VHS case, right? You guys remember that? This was common when purchasing a new tape. So you had to break the sticker to open the case, and basically ensuring customers couldn't swap out cassettes, and because that was a big problem. Also, it was meant to prevent any recording over the store's copy. Most rental VHS cassettes had their record protects tabs removed, and that was on purpose. Obviously, they didn't want you recording over the tape. And just in case you don't recall this, that was the little plastic piece on the cassette you normally had to break off to basically lock the tape from further recording. I would do that all the time. If I had a recording on there and I didn't want my sisters to record over something, I would just break that little plastic tab. And I even remember that some stores even covered that record hole or that record tab area with a sticker that would say void if removed, making it clear that the tape was off limits for recording. And some VHS blanks came with sticker sheets that actually included those special squares or dots meant to cover the record tab opening. And basically that every sticker had a purpose is what I'm trying to say. Stickers were a powerful way to manage the flow of tapes and protect the store's investment. The Be Kind Rewind slogan itself is so iconic, you guys, but there are other very important ones that exist, like the melt sticker. Do you remember that? That is a huge thing among VHS aficionados. They love finding that melt sticker. This was a label some shops placed on tapes to detect heat damage. And if a customer left the tape in a hot car and the tape overheated, the sticker's ink would change, essentially outing the negligent renter. And it sounds crazy now, but at least a few stores went to the length to protect that was the length that they went to protect their stock. Now imagine returning a tape and the clerk pointing to a color changing sticker and saying, we know what you did with this poor VHS tape, right? And you're going to get charged for it. So these clever little innovations, even though they're mostly forgotten, they highlight just how VHS culture had its own ecosystem of care and concern at the time, right? And they were all expressed through stickers and labels. Now let's talk about why this is really huge nostalgia and why collectors care today. It's easy to laugh at all of this today, right? I mean, who gets misty-eyed over labels? But as it turns out, a lot of people do. Among VHS collectors and nostalgia buffs, the ephemera on a tape can be nearly as cherished as the movie itself. There's even a gorgeous art book titled Stuck on VHS, A Visual History of Video Store Stickers, featuring over 1,000 images of old rental stickers and essays celebrating their place in pop culture. These seemingly trivial stickers are described as quote-unquote small but essential ephemera that captured a time when movies mattered and video stores ruled. In other words, they're a tactile connection to an era. Collectors debate fervently whether to leave vintage stickers on a tape or remove them. I remember reading an article back a few years ago. It was published by Lunch Meat VHS, and basically it posed this very question to the tapehead community. And some purists see faded rental stickers or blemishes as ugly residue that mar the cover art, right? For me, that was the case back in the day. Others, and myself included today, view them as part of the tape's story. And I think the article noted that many videophiles love these stickers because they provide obscure insight on the tape's origin, and like the provenance, right? And I think that the article did really well in describing that and kind of showing that off. Now, for a lot of Gen X collectors, seeing an old video store label triggers instant memories of that store's smell, the layout of the aisles, or the clerk who used to rent these movies to us, right? I think they do. I mean, it does for me. Now, I can tell you that in some forums, collectors, they swap a lot of stories about weird finds online. Tapes covered with overkill of labels, right? Or custom labels. Those are some of my favorites. I remember reading in a Reddit forum, the user joked that creating a VHS label with those little VHS stickers was like writing a ransom note, and I just thought that was hilarious because we used to always use those little letters to sometimes even label the title, and I think that looks fantastic. And others even have recalled in those forums. I remember family members who had almost like librarian-like systems in place. I remember one Redditor had written that their father numbered each tape and kept a movie notebook cross-referencing the contents, but to each his own. Now, an interesting thing about the Be Kind Rewind as lore. Now, we all associate the phrase with rental stores, but it's worth noting how omnipresent it was. And it was not only printed on stickers, it was printed on posters and even flashed on screens. And kids who grew up in that time, we can still hear a little nagging voice when we finish a movie, right? Like, even if there's nothing to rewind today. Now, a last interesting point I want to talk about here is the rental chain branding on spines. When Blockbuster took off in the late 80s, they introduced uniform branded cases and spine labels. Many of their VHS rentals didn't display the movie's original cover art, right, on the outside. If you remember, they came in that generic, like a white box with the blue and yellow printing, and basically Blockbuster designed font and colors. Now, the spine of these cases had a simple text label with the movie title, often in Blockbuster's stencil font, right? And an inventory number. So you remember, while you're out there on the floor looking for that movie, you're seeing a single, VHS cover to look at the box art and read the back of it, which was really fun to do. And then you had, right behind it, you could just select the film if it was available. And that to me is so nostalgic, just picking a movie when you go into the rental store, right? To me, owning a former Blockbuster tape today, which I have plenty of those on my shelf, complete with that plain spine label and maybe a please rewind sticker is so thrilling. And it's like a direct artifact of the Blockbuster experience for me. All right, friends. So look, as a Gen X kid and lifelong tape head, reflecting on VHS spine labels and stickers is really a trip, equal parts nostalgia and insight, right? It's funny how something so small, the spine label on a VHS tape, could play such a big role in our media lives. They were our map to countless movie marathons of visual comfort in the era before endless digital menus. And culturally, they turned humble cassettes into conversation pieces and status symbols. I mean, I had a friend who lived in the neighborhood that had everything categorically. It was just an amazing thing. It was almost like walking into an early collector's room, like we see today with a lot of these influencers that go out and buy and collect VHS tapes. Historically, these labels and stickers tell the story of a rapidly evolving home video industry, from the Wild West of early rental clubs with their homemade tags to the corporate polish of Blockbuster's branding. And finally, to the retro-obsessed collectors hunting for that rare melt sticker cassette today. Aesthetically, they form a lost art, in my opinion. The bold typography, colorful genre stickers, and even the wear and tear. I mean, faded highlight markers, store stamps, peeled corners, they give each tape a unique character. In sharing these stories and details, I hope I've not only triggered some warm memories of your own. I mean, I really hope that you suddenly recall the exact look of your local video store. And you've got to let me know in the comments. Let me know, like write to me and just tell me where this took you. I'd love to know that. I also hope that I've highlighted why these tiny ephemera matter. I mean, they really do, you guys. They matter because they encapsulate a whole mode of living and enjoying media that was physical. And for me, it was very communal. A VHS spine label could spark a conversation or a recommendation, and it still does for me today. A Be Kind rewind sticker taught us a little courtesy and maybe some responsibility. Even the silliest genre sticker or the most authoritarian warning label is now a marker of our past. So here's to those quirky spine labels, rental stickers, and tamper seals. Here's to the unsung heroes of VHS culture. They may have been small, but they loom large in the memories of a generation. And if what mattered was taking the time to neatly label a cassette of a favorite show or rewind a tape for the next person, maybe that says something good about us after all. In a world of instant access, we can appreciate the charm of when entertainment came with stickers and instructions. As we eject this episode, don't forget to rewind it for the next listener. Until next time, time travelers, keep the tape rolling and stay rad.
Yeah, I know some people fighting. Maybe it's for something real.